thank you very much for everyone for joining us today. A particular thanks to PLATFORMA for all the efforts in organizing this event, and also to all the speakers that have agreed to come here today to share their experiences on this very important topic for us, which is how to strengthen democracy through local global citizenship education. And, my name is Anna Larcher, and I'm here today representing 𝗔𝗡. 𝗔𝗡 is the European network of ministries and agencies of foreign affairs and education that have a national responsibility in the field of global education. And this year, actually yesterday, was a very special day for us, as it was 𝗔𝗡's 25th anniversary. So 𝗔𝗡 began in 2001 with 6 countries, and today brings together more than 60 ministries and agencies from over 22 European countries. So I'm sharing this with you. Of course, for us, it's a reason to celebrate, but also I think it really shows the importance of global education in Europe and how it has moved from the margins to the mainstream. And so this webinar is the second session that we organize in a new series that Angel and 𝗔𝗡 have launched recently. And over the years, Angel has organized several webinars exploring a wide range of topics, some more from a research perspective, but also policy perspective. But we felt the need to have a series that was really more focused, a space designed just specifically for policymakers and this is part of ongoing efforts by Angel and 𝗔𝗡 to bring closer together research and policy. So with this webinar series, we really wanted to bring together research evidence, policy experience, and practical examples of how we can support policymakers in their work on global education. And this brings me to the most important thing, which is the topic of the webinar today. And we'll be exploring how democracy and how global education can help strengthen democracy. So, of course, in Europe and beyond, the erosion of democracy has become a central concern. And this is because of long processes of erosion of democracy itself, of democratic participation, and of trust in democracy. But it's also, especially more recently, through direct attacks to its values and its norms. So in 𝗔𝗡, we have a process of identifying what are the key issues that policymakers in global education are concerned about. And the erosion of democracy has become one of these central issues. So we have organized several events to explore and reflect on how global education can contribute to strengthen democracy. And past Angel conferences have, and also the upcoming conference in Bologna explored in several ways the contribution of global education to democracy, peace, and human rights. So this webinar for us is a continuation of this conversation, but focusing on the local level. And for us, it's particularly important to look at democracy from the local perspective, because local and regional governments are public institutions very close to citizens, and together with schools, together with CSOs and other community organizations, they play a crucial role in creating spaces for participation, for critical reflection, and also for mobilizing for collective action. And for this reason, they are also central actors in global citizenship education. 𝗔𝗡 has a long-standing collaboration with PLATFORMA, and currently 𝗔𝗡 is involved in joint research with PLATFORMA, exploring precisely the importance of GCE initiatives at local level in the face of the current socioeconomic and geopolitical challenges. So in our previous webinar, we were discussing how we can harness the collective power of global education to bring about change. And today we will hear inspiring examples of how this can be done in practice at local level. So I am very pleased to hand over now to Rocío Ballesta Orta from PLATFORMA. PLATFORMA is the pan-European coalition of local and regional government who has organized and will moderate today's session. So before doing so, I would also like to very warmly thank all the speakers for joining us. And so thank you all for being with us today. And Rocío, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anna, for the warm welcome. Thank you to you as well for this great collaboration. So my name is Rocío Ballesta. I'll be the moderator for today's session. As Anna mentioned, I'm an officer on Global Citizenship Education at PLATFORMA. So I've been co-organizing this session together with the colleagues from GCE and the Angel Network. And today, to talk about this timely issue, we have with us 5 great speakers. So let me introduce them to you before we go to the session. So we have with us Paolo Beltraminelli, who is a politician from the Swiss canton of Ticino and the vice chair of the governance committee of the Congress of Local and Regional Authorities of the Council of Europe. Also with us, Laia Fargas Fursa, who is the head of the Global Citizenship Education and Outreach Unit within the International Department of the Barcelona Provincial Council. Mónica Vidal Fernández, the Cooperation Technician at 𝗔𝗡𝗏𝗄𝗏, the Basque Agency for Cooperation and Solidarity. Josu Millas, Social Intervention Technician at the Independent Basque NGO Assembly for Cooperation for Peace. And last but not least, Yassin Attar, Policy Advisor for Diversity and Anti-Racism in the Belgian city of Leuven. So today you will be hearing practical examples on how local and regional governments tackle this issue through global citizenship education. So without further ado, I will give the floor to Paolo to give us the opening remarks and to talk and give us an overview of how citizens' participation in local life can strengthen democratic governance. Please, Paolo, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosa. Dear participant, good afternoon. It is a privilege to address you today on behalf of the Congress of Local Authority and Regional Authority, where I serve as Vice Chair. Allow me first to express sincere gratitude to organizers for this exchange and to all participants for your engagement. Education remains a strategic priority for our society, particularly for local and regional authorities. In the Congress, we affirm that education is not only vital for individual personal development, but also underpins the resilience, cohesion, and vitality of our communities. Education provides the foundation for active citizenships, intercultural dialogue, and the critical thinking essential for sustaining democracy. The Council of Europe's reference framework of competencies for democratic culture provides a comprehensive model for the knowledge, skills, attitude, and values to learners need to participate effectively in democratic society. It highlights a range of competences that are highly relevant to global education, including respect for human rights, human dignity, openness to cultural diversity, critical thinking, empathy, and civic mindedness, all of which help learners engage responsibly with global challenges. This ethos applies to all countries and education systems. This matters because in today's fast-changing world, global education is essential. It helps people of all ages to understand how local and global issues are interconnected, Global education develops critical thinking, fosters respect for human rights and diversity, promotes democratic participation, and advances sustainability and media literacy. It equips learners to challenge disinformation, build solidarity, and engage positively within their communities and beyond. Global education is also at the heart of the work done by the Council of European North-South Center. The North-South Center, based in Lisbon, promotes the Council of Europe's standards and tools of human rights, democracy, and the rule of law beyond the European continent, supporting dialogue and partnership with the Global South. The Congress activity contributes to it as part of its executive quadrilogue, a unique cooperation model that brings together four case parties: representative of subnational authorities, governments, national parliaments, and civil society. Through its robust European network of national global education coordinators and annual initiatives such as Global Education Week, the North-South Center facilitates knowledge sharing and policy harmonization. Over the years, landmark publications such as the Global Education Guidelines and the Global Education Recognition (SHAM) have provided governments, educators, and practitioners with resources to mainstream global education and assess its quality and impact. We are all conscious that trust in democratic institutions is under strain. Inequalities are widening. Disinformation and hate speech spread both online and offline, and polarization deepens. Those dynamics are most acutely felt at local level, in town and region where people interact directly with public authorities. Local and regional government have both the capacity and responsibility to respond. Through Global Citizenship Education, we can empower individuals as active, informed citizens. We can implement practical tools to counter disinformation and hate speech and reduce polarization, fostering solidarity, cultivating a democratic culture, and the grassroots. In many countries, local authorities oversee school, youth policies, libraries, museums, cultural institutions, and civic participation initiatives. But leveraging these responsibilities, we can build stronger democratic culture, promote social cohesion, bolster resilience against misinformation and hate speech, increase opportunities for active citizen engagement, foster intercultural and interfaith dialogue. The Governance Committee and the Congress continue to produce reports to help us all address these challenges. For instance, our recent report on school absenteeism, which was adopted in committee just last week, and another one of teaching of regional history. A series of reports of the environment, on water governance, the circular economy, coastal erosion, and ongoing report on biodiversity, recognizing that a sustainable environment is central for our future. Report addressing good governance, such a checklist to prevent corruption. Or report on cultural heritage, such as the one on contested, conflicting, and forgotten memories. Each of these reports highlights how education, environment, culture, and heritage are mutually reinforcing pillars of resilient democratic societies. Crucially, global citizenship education inspires change at the local level. Across Europe, local initiatives rekindle civic engagement and rebuild trust in democracy. For instance, in Leuven, Belgium, the city has run innovative media and digital literacy initiatives targeting both youth and adults and empowering them to spot fake news. In Berlin, Germany has developed a range of youth participation mechanisms, including youth parliaments and youth councils, enabling young people to contribute to local policymaking and strengthen their civic engagement. And local authorities in Krakow, Poland, have teamed up with educators to promote climate education and sustainability projects, helping young people understand the link between local environment and global climate change challenges. Global citizenship education is not about teaching people what to think. It's about equipping them with the knowledge, skills, values, and attitudes to think critically, engage constructively, and shape a better future for their communities. In 2023, in Reykjavik, the heads of the state of government of the Council of Europe specifically underlined in their declaration the role of education in fostering responsible, active citizenship. More broadly, the Council of Europe has launched comprehensive political and strategic consultation to develop a new pact, a democratic pact for Europe. This initiative is designed to address the urgent challenge of democratic backsliding and to enhance citizen engagement. In addition, as a contribution to the pact, a democracy hackathon will take place from today at 5 p.m. until Friday, specifically dedicated to combating hate speech in digital environment. This event brings together innovators, activists, and policymakers to co-design tools that fight hate speech. You are very welcome to join live session online and the Hackathon 2026 website. On behalf of the Congress of Local and Regional Authorities, I thank you for your ongoing commitment. Together, we can make progress toward more inclusive, resilient, and democratic societies where education and participation are at the heart of your shared future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paolo, for sharing with us the work and commitment of the Council of Europe to global citizenship education, specifically through the Congress and also the North-South Center, with whom we have a good relation and long-standing collaboration as well. Thank you for sharing the hackathon. For participants, I've shared the link to the website in the chat in case you are interested and you want to join the hackathon. Paolo, I think in your intervention you have addressed very key and important points for us. You said that this democratic backsliding is mostly felt at the local level, and I think this is why this webinar is so important, and this is something that we want to highlight today, because local and regional governments have the capacity and the responsibility to tackle this backsliding, because they are policymakers and mobilizers of stakeholders. And this is something that you will see throughout the presentations today. You also mentioned the education framework of the Council of Europe, the reference framework. And I think this is key because it already gives us these insights on how actions, GCE local actions, need to be sustained and supported by strategies and policies, which is something that we will see today as well. So thank you very much. I think this is a perfect transition to the presentations. So without further ado, I will give the floor to Laia from the Barcelona Provincial Council, who will be presenting their guidelines for planning global citizenship education at the local level. Please, Laia, the floor is yours. You can already start sharing your screen if you want. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rocío, Jean, Angela, and Platforma for inviting us to present this guideline made by my colleagues, Sara Garrido, former head of GCE, and the coordination of Lale Carrillo, and Lucy Rodrigo, and with the translation of 𝗪𝗓𝗏. I will mention them because this guide is a result of team working with municipalities as well. This publication was made with the input received by members of local governments of our working group. 26 municipalities from our province integrate this working group. First of all, I would like to introduce us very briefly. Barcelona Provincial Council is a local public administration which main mission is develop tools for supporting the 311 municipality that conforms our province with economical, technical, and material resources by developing their policies at the local level. So these guidelines seek to promote the strategic approach of global citizenship education as part of development cooperation policy for local governments. I would like to remark for the beginning the definition of global citizenship education for us, because the definition of global citizenship education has evolved, as you know, from the beginning in the 50s. And the first education initiative links to the development cooperation projects were likely instrumental, and the debate have fit new approaches, from interdependence inequalities beyond poverty reduction or economic growth. This terminological debate has taken place in parallel with goals and practices in our ambit. Education and participation of citizens has become a goal itself. And even in our context, we have identified at least 6 different definitions, from education from development until global justice education in development cooperation plans of local governments adopted between 2018 and 2023. So we understand global citizenship education as the educational, social process through which people become aware of global challenges and develop solidarity and commitment to the defense of peace, human rights, and sustainability of life in Earth. Education includes formal, like schools, colleges, non-formal leisure actors and non-regulating trainings, and informal, like media campaigns from childhood to adulthood, as well as the impact of this education on attitudes, emotions, and behaviors, and the recognition of all people and institutions which conform the educational ecosystem. Citizenship has a wide and inclusive conception, from equity, community-based approaches, and whatever the legal status of citizens have. Global citizenship education sees them as agents of change with rights and responsibilities. GCE focuses on the global context and connects local realities with global inequalities and interdependence to promote solidarity and empathy beyond borders. GCE is part of development cooperation policies at all the levels of government, but we are focusing on the local level. And at that point, the added value of local level in this policy, because proximity it's one of the key issues for us. The educational projects can be adapted to the local context with the situated knowledge of local authorities and establishing significant links between this context and the global challenges that we need to confront. Mainstreaming as well, because local government has this collaboration between different policies and is feasible to work with these currents of politics at that level. So it's as well one of the points that we want to highlight. The participation is the existing mechanisms for participation with civil society organization at this level is also a strengthening of our policies at the local level. The dynamism as well. Local level have the capacity to respond changing local and international context. No, the challenges that Paolo mentioned before. No, this global, but at the same time the impacts in the local of these hate speeches, the human rights crisis, the climate change, how this can be work at the local level as well as global challenges at the same time. Working as a network, local governments are part of these networks, and it allows to expand and scale up global citizenship initiative. The track records, 20 years of experience in education increase the transformative capacity of these practices at the local level as well. For us, it was important to reflect on translating the potential of GCE from theory to practice in terms of policy planning to the local context. So we have three remarks. The importance of adapting the structure of plans to the local policy context, because we have more experience in planning local development cooperation policy, with a special attention to objectives, issues, regional priorities aligned with international cooperation projects and partner countries. However, global citizenship education planning requires more attention to audiences, methodologies, and participation of agents in the local context, links to these global challenges that we speak before: climate change, migration, human rights, disinformation, hate narrative. The including educational framework is a crucial point to involve educational agents in the planning, formal and informal ones, that complement cooperation frameworks. Participation will be always a key issue in global citizenship education planning. How we manage to integrate educational perspective with artistic, socio-emotional, and critical methodologies for promote critical thinking and empowering citizenship, it is also important. At the same time, the connection between local and global context must be developed with concrete actions and proposals in planning. Defining priorities based in that context, this local context determines what makes sense and what is feasible to implement in each place, depending on the sectors, on the local educational actors and social with which work together, depending on specific characteristics, links with global problems. Each local government will design their own strategies planning GCE. It's not the same, for example, GCE in a coastal city that hosts refugees should tackle different subjects than a rural municipality in a fragile ecosystem facing waste management difficulties, for example. So in this process of planning, it's important, it's a good point to identify these concrete aspects and unique opportunities of each context of these ecosystems with local associations, formal education institutions, experience in different areas of local policy, and and take advantage of these specific opportunities. The availability of human resources is also relevant because organizations and networking is part of our work. So it's important to have these resources as well. And very, very summarizing, like we try to design a small summary diagram. At that point, I want only to sign the steps that we identify that can help local governments to develop a GCE planning process. From the first step, defining the approach and the terminology, as we mentioned in the beginning, setting out the goals of the process, ensuring GCE expertise in the planning team, and launching, identifying the educational stakeholders to be engaged. It's participation, it's a crucial point, so this is an important step, and training in GCE. In diagnosis, stock taking of previous experience. We have this background, so we have learning experience in that point. It's important to check that. Using criteria for GCE quality, identifying opportunities, connecting the diagnosis to decision making. In the preparation, defining realistic goals with the available resources. It's very important. Mechanisms that drive change and mainstreaming GCE, the key role of civil society and the local actors with which we want to work on, and the approval and communication, participation and active communication in all along the process of planning with educational stakeholders and other partnerships are crucial, and the transformative communication role is important as well in these processes. Finally, the implementation and monitoring, as any other policy, it's important to define indications to measure progress and identify as well useful information gathering systems as planning for implementing evaluation process. So finally, and very briefly as well, but I want to share with you one good practice that we have in the province. So I have a short video that I will want to share with you. La educación para la ciudadanía
Global
global
Citizenship Education wants to raise awareness to generate critical capacity and commitment in the construction of our world that needs to be more fair, sustainable, and peaceful. The City Council of Ruby implemented a GCE plan for 2024 to 2028. The main goal was to generate the critical capacity of citizens vis-a-vis the breach of human rights and global justice, and to connect local reality with global dynamics. It's a pity that you cannot get the music, but never mind. We work on anti-racism through various activities. We've also invited organizations and persons talking about their rights as migrants, and organizations such as Refugees Welcome. They have made all this work possible through this poster on how to find a rental or an apartment for refugees and how to connect them with the community. The most shocking thing about these sessions was the work with refugees, because they didn't know there was a campaign specifically for them called Refugees Welcome. There are two turning points in this session. One was when we were explained what a refugee was, and the other turning point was when we met them and we understood who they were. Then we really realized that they are amongst us, and then we realized that it was great to have them on board, because and it's important to talk about them, but people didn't know about them and we didn't know who they were. People would think that they would come to steal our money. So it was great to introduce them to the neighbors, and it was really impactful when we had this talk with a migrant called Rona, and this person came to talk to us about their background and their history. It's really important for young people to really understand the refugee reality so that they can change their context and their mindsets as well. The main goal of the organization was to bring us together, to show who we are, where we come from, and what we have found in this place, and to speak for ourselves, to be who we are. So we do various cultural activities, sports activities. People say that we are racist, or people are racist, but it's because they don't know us. They are afraid of us. But if they know us, the racism and hate will disappear. The association that we've created to fight genital mutilation in Africa and social dropout and education dropout of kids, of migrants. Lots of people will come today and they will be talking about this. And yeah. There are other activities in the session that are really important to tell people about us, and so that we get to be better known in our communities. This is a workshop on electronics, and we are explaining the participants everything to know about the design and use of an electronic device since it is manufactured all the way to the shop, and the useful life cycle of these elements until they end up in a waste recycling facility. And we were talking about toxic waste and how to handle toxic waste, and the production of tablets and computers and mobile phones that we all use, and that we work very many hours a day with these electronic devices. I was so surprised that in Africa or poor countries, they produce the materials that we have to have our mobile phones here. So this is a workshop for 6th grade students, so that they're aware of what we are consuming and to make them more responsible consumers in society. Mission of Ruby Solidarity as an organization is to work for the cooperation and advocacy of human rights. We work at the local level, and therefore we think that local awareness of Ruby citizens is so important to work for global justice. So we are trying to find a space for reflection to be able to work and act in a more responsible manner in local and global problems. With the current situation of hate speech, we think it's so important to promote projects to increase diversity respect in Ruby, because we think the global problems have local expressions, and if we solve the local conflicts, we have an impact on global policies to improve and have a better world. These training courses are really interesting, and I think for participants, we feel enriched, and we get to talk with other people about what we feel, what we've seen, and we think this is really important for the whole city, really, and for everyone. This plan is divided into 4 stages or 4 parts. On the one hand is global citizen education in schools, to mainstream it in schools. Secondly, to work as a network in the territory, with the authorities. We also mainstream it in the city council itself. And lastly, the 4th axis is communication, transformative communication. So 4 axes that are part of the SDGs for equal gender equality, violence, sustainable development, which we believe they are the priority strategic goals following Agenda 2030 in Ruby for us, and also for the construction of a world that is more fair for humankind and for our planet.
Thank you so much, Laia. Thank you for sharing this video with us, which I think really shows how strategic planning can be translated into practical examples and practical campaigns that are, let's say, tangible, right? And I think you touch upon different points that were very relevant, because we were talking at the beginning of the session, we were talking about how polarization, disinformation, and hate speech is mostly felt at the local level. But this happens because the local level, local and regional governments are active in the territories where people live. And you said something like those local and regional governments are the ones that bring an added value because they know the local context. And this is why this is important, because local and regional governments are in contact with the citizens. They know the needs, they know their concerns, and the campaigns can be adapted to those specific contexts. And I think the Ruby case really showcases this, right? Like how different communities, different citizens are brought together with one objective, and with the transversalization, the mainstreaming of all those key perspectives that global citizenship education brings, such as gender equality, respect for diversity, etc. So thank you so much. I think this was a great first example to share. Please don't hesitate to put your questions in the Q&A. Also, if you want to hear more about the campaigns that our speakers are sharing, please ask for them. I'm sure they will be happy to share links and documents that are available. Before passing to the next speaker, I just want to point out something, because I guess you've heard already some different terms. So Paolo was talking about global education, Laia is talking about global citizenship education, and I know our colleagues from the Basque country will be talking about education for social transformation. So for those of you that are not very aware of these different terminologies, they all have the same objective. It's just a matter of perspective and of choice of the different stakeholders on where to put the emphasis. And for that, I really invite you to read the 𝗔𝗡𝗏 Declaration, where there is an explanation of what global education is, what it entails, and what different terminologies are out there. So just this small clarification before we go to the next speakers, but please don't hesitate again to put your questions in the chat. So without further ado, I will now give the floor to our colleagues from the Basque country. Mónica and Josu will be presenting their Global Citizenship Education Strategy, or Education for Social Transformation Strategy, which is called a 𝗑𝗏𝗏 strategy, and also a practical example on how this strategy was translated to the practical level. Mónica, please, the floor is yours. They will be speaking in Spanish, just for you to know. Thank you very much.
Muy bien, pues nada, muchísimas gracias.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for being there, and thank you for your interest in listening to us. And also like to thank Platform, Angel, and Jean for inviting us to participate in this webinar. And it is a pleasure for us to share with you from our place, our site, what it is that we are promoting in order to foster that critical citizenship. So I'm going to use, we're like two, we're like a bit of a tandem, right? I'm going to talk a little bit more about the politics, the policy, the strategy, the public policies, and so on. And Josu, my colleague, will talk more about from the experience of an organization that gets the funds from the agency in order to carry out projects. And this is key for education for social transformation. So the previous speakers have mentioned a little bit that terminology, and Rocío has just clarified that too. But the term that we recognize ourselves, even though we could be a little bit related to transformation, because the strategy was actually launched in 2017, and that year we realized that this was the concept of the term that represented us. Maybe now, 10 years later, we could be in a different place, but so far that's the one that we are using, that term. So 𝗑𝗏𝗏 is the Basque strategy for social transformation, which looks for that critical thinking and also aims to promote people aware, empowered, and responsible to the society, their own lives, but also the environment where they live. So the idea is to create that global citizenship that aims to transform the reality where they live and promote a more just and solid, more just world, and a world of more solidarity. So this is kind of like a brief definition. I think my colleague is, this is a slide where you can very well see, this is in Basque and in Castilian, but it kind of gathers very briefly which are the key elements of the 𝗑𝗏𝗏 strategy. So if you want, Josu, I don't know whether there'll be opportunities to share these presentations or not, but if they can be shared, in the first slide, you have the links to CPP, the organization that Josu represents, ACPP, and also the Basque Agency for Cooperation and Solidarity. So we now move to the 6 key aspects This is about supporting people that build alternatives, promoting and enhance pedagogical environments, the rights-based approach, and the local global perspective. These are central elements of this strategy, and also the co-responsibility issue of all stakeholders, particularly for public institutions, because as public institutions, as a public institution that actually led this process for the assessment of the strategy, which involved several stakeholders, the idea was kind of like to get out of that finding role of the cooperation agencies. And our idea was to acknowledge ourselves as responsible agents or responsible actors in all these educational processes. And another key element was also the one about having long-lasting learning as a reference. And what was all this about? Well, we in the educational processes, we could see that the idea is to generate changes, right? We don't do these processes just because we want people to get to know things. No, we want to do and implement changes. So we said, okay, which could be those changes? And in the next slide, you can see how there are changes in the understanding of the APTS, because as I said before, since 2017 that we launched it up to 26, there are changes in that understanding, because we're continuously changing based on the realities, the different realities and the different projects that are launched. There are changes in the educational practices. It is obvious that from those practices, we project how we want to carry out those processes and what changes we somehow want to promote. And at the same time, you can also see the changes in the individuals and communities, how we want to promote those changes, and also the changes in the public institutions. And these changes are supported by a set of indicators that we're currently working on with we also have no problem in sharing with you somehow how we want to measure all these changes. It is clear that Sorry, Mónica, maybe we would like you to ask a little bit slower, maybe for the interpretation purposes. Thank you. Yes, I was saying that the changes are grouped in these 4 big changes and these 4 blocks. And now, since 2021, we have a set of indicators in order to measure these changes. And as I was saying, we are currently we're doing this strategic analysis now, and we therefore want to have an outlook so that the entities that cooperate with us also contribute to these changes, want to check how they're doing. And one of the characteristics is that this is not only about a strategy. The strategy is actually shared. This strategy has been joined by different public institutions, city councils, local provincial authorities, the Basque government, and also social organizations and educational centers. So we form some kind of committee to monitor the strategy, and we try to take part in a horizontal approach in order to generate a space where we can share our learnings, where we can present challenges, and so on. And when it comes to joining the strategy, we suggested these 8 commitments. For us, maybe one of the challenges is got to do with how we make sure that what we see in the strategy ends up embedded into the practices of what is considered by the entities that are part of ABN. So I said, okay, let's try and consider and present 8 commitments. They're quite general, but somehow they kind of call for these associations to join the strategy to follow them. So we have this promotion of education for social transformation, critical social effective participatory approaches, human rights, and local global perspective as our core elements. We can also remember that the work with the local context without a perspective with the local aspects may lead to visions and actions that are partial, that are biased. And also we can see breach of rights if we're not careful. Another question that we're committed to is sharing experiences and promotion of continuous learning. We meet twice a year, and we have the commitment to participate in those monitoring committees. Maybe now, Josu, you can show the last slide so that you can see a little bit in general the logos of the different institutions that are part of this initiative. And it doesn't mean that these are the only organizations, public institutions, and educational centers that participate. Also, through our own policy, and when we open the calls for projects, we, with our own assessment criteria, we are including elements that are core for our guideline that are part of this strategy. And thanks to that, the actual entities that participate in our calls have to respond to those priorities that are considered as part of the strategy. This is therefore how we are somehow seeing how to promote it further. And I probably leave it here. I wanted to be really brief with regards to the strategy, and I now give the floor to my colleague Josu so that he can explain to us from his practical experience how he is implementing, or how all this is being implemented in more specific terms, how we are promoting this education for social transformation. Thank you, Mónica. Well, first of all, thanks to the organization for giving us this space, 𝗥𝗲𝗀𝗥 for supporting the project that I'm going to present, also for inviting us to be part of today's session. And also thank you to the interpreters, which I know that they have it a bit of a complicated working sessions like today. So this, from the Assembly for Cooperation for Peace, we're going to talk about the strategy in this project, is strengthening capacities and building an alliance against hate speech through an intersectional feminist perspective. This is, as I say, a project that is supported by 𝗥𝗲𝗀𝗥, and we are working in consortium with an association called COP-SF34, which is a group of micro companies that support entrepreneurs of migrants supported in the neighborhood that has the highest percentage of migrant population in the Basque country. It is a place where they support entrepreneurship, but it's also a key place to fight against the stigmatization, to promote interculturality, and also to support and acknowledge the capacities of the migrant population. So the fight against hate speech is, in our opinion, very important, and therefore we have to ally with organizations that are working from this perspective on the daily work. The aim of the project is to promote peace building and conflict transformation towards local global citizenship alternatives that foster inclusive, equal, and sustainable coexistence and counter hate speech. And in this sense, we have worked, as I said, in the capacity building for mainly educational institutions, but also other stakeholders that we consider key for this objective. And also we've worked in advocacy processes and critical awareness raising processes in the political sphere. Talking about partnerships, we thought it was important to acknowledge and value the work done by a lot of our associations every day, often without permanent funding, without resources, with volunteers, with advocates. And these are the ones that work every day with people at risk of social exclusion, vulnerable people. For us, it was therefore very important to partner with these associations. We wanted to also acknowledge their work and support their work. These are also the organizations that also sometimes reach spaces where others don't reach. So we thought, therefore, it was important to mention them here, at least to, show them to you. And I would like to perhaps highlight 𝗔𝗡𝗥 which is a network that supports migrant people in transit in the border between the Basque country and France. Theoretically, that is support that guarantees the free movement of individuals, but in the practice, there are controls based on nationality or their skin colors. So this is one of the associations that we partnered with. There is another one in Donosti that works in something as simple as preparing meals every day through volunteers for people that are homeless. But once again, we think the work that they do is absolutely crucial in order to reach spaces where others don't reach. We've also worked with Yassin, an association of families of transsexual minors in the Basque Country who work for the rights of the trans childhood. And in educational terms, the role has been absolutely crucial. I wanted to now share some of the projects that we worked on as part of this process, which are the most important and enriching ones in our opinion. And also we want to share some of the challenges that we've encountered along the way. The first project that we wanted to share with you is a social transformation process through photography with young people with unaccompanied foreign minors that belong to a center for minors in Moderator. This has been a combination of theoretical, practical learning on photography, but also a meeting space to see new ways to tell and see their environment. This ended up in at a photo exhibition. You can see the poster. It is titled From the Inside, This is What We See. And this is a set of images selected by the participants themselves. And we actually then have some opening events with this exhibition. We've displayed it in different venues in the Basque Country, and we've generated spaces for the joint spaces for the citizenship to add visibility to this group of unaccompanied foreign minors. As part of this process, we've learned something important, and it is that when we started, it was very clear to us that we wanted to focus on the situation of this group of minors that were taking part on the initiative. When we saw that there was a risk, if we approach everything from this point of view, we were going to fall into that risk of reproducing re-victimization dynamics. And we were potentially going to ask everyone constantly to focus on those very recent processes that they've just experienced, and they're very hard. So we started to change the approach a little bit. We opened the themes a little bit more so that they could take ownership of the process to have a result that was more of a group result, but that didn't focus particularly on their situation as unaccompanied foreign minors in the Basque Country. We had a social worker supporting our work, which was very important for this process. And also, we counted on the participation of migrant and Afro-descendant young people that are residents in Bilbao. And this was very good in part to create that group environment so that minors that had just arrived could create a network with people that are already residents in the Basque Country. And the idea was also to generate a work environment that was very enriching in order to meet the objective that we had set out. This is some of the photos that are part of the exhibition for you to see a little bit what we did or what it was about. It was a combination of technical learning on photography, but it was also very focused, even though we didn't focus on that, but obviously focused on, the stories that they conveyed were a little bit based on their situation as migrant minors. We also wanted to focus on the educational processes, in this case, formal education. With the work in formal education, we've worked with teachers and students, but in all cases, we've had the objective for educational centers to play a role as community agents in social transformation in the neighborhoods where they're located. So all the processes, regardless of what we've decided, they have ended up with the creation of content that creates communication or a link then with the neighborhood where the school centers are located. This case, for example, is like a collaborative wall paint in Bilbao. We did this yesterday, and after a work on migration, the students created this with the support of an expert, and it was painted on the wall of the neighborhood, and that creates a communication with the environment, the neighborhood where they live. Another experience has also been the creation of childhood gatherings with primary education centers related to diversity as a whole, gender diversity, sexual identity diversity, gender roles, refugees, and so on. So this is focused on all kinds of diversities. And as part of this educational work, we see some challenges. It was very clear to us that we wanted to strengthen the educational centers as community agents. But along that process, we realized that one of the difficulties was about involving the families as key educational agents within our processes. Within this challenge, we identified in some centers that due to the registration logics and the segregation processes that we see, particularly in the public system, we see that in many of these centers, the families that register their children are not families from the neighborhood itself. In fact, sometimes they come from other locations, and that adds a difficulty with regards to creating that educational community or that educational forest for the families and the role of those families in the processes. And it also is a bit of a challenge in terms of creating that routing process. We've also worked with the management of the schools who've been very motivated to go ahead with this project, but at the same time, they see challenges in order to implement them autonomously. So we think it's very positive that NGOs and other spaces can support these processes, but we think it's still absolutely crucial for the centers to have the enough autonomy in order to develop these projects independently. And so we think it is important that educational for social transformation needs to become cross-sectional in the curriculums, and we need to work with the different institutions, and we need to work with the teachers themselves. NGOs and other type of entities can actually play an important role in all that. And finally, also wanted to share with you the work that we've carried out in the field of communication and awareness raising as part of the process. We have designed a communication campaign that has been done with the collaboration of Kamanga Influencers, which is a group of migrants, Afro-descendants, young people with an audiovisual communication space, and they're experts in this field. So it's been very useful working with them in the design of this campaign, because we convey the same messages that we would convey from the NGOs, but they do it from certain logics and certain codes that are closer to young people. And the reach and the impact is different. And we obviously continue with anti-racist and inclusive and community communication. And one of the objectives of one of these campaigns, there was a campaign called Factory of Balthasars, which was an initiative that initially was about collecting secondhand toys to give to young people at risk of social exclusion, but it turned into a black-based campaign, and it had a big impact in a lot of media. And it was a way to use humor and other codes and other forms of communication to launch similar messages. It was a way of transforming awareness and the impact. And we did all this through the collaboration with organizations that are experts in the field, and that way we could do it in a way that we wouldn't have done alone. I think we're running out of time. So thank you very much for this space, as I said before, and if you have any questions, we're very happy to answer. Thank you so much.
Josu, Mónica, muchísimas gracias. Many thanks. I have noted down plenty of points to highlight, because I think the work you've shared is very impactful and relevant. As we are short in time, I will just highlight maybe two. The first is horizontal co-responsibility, and I think the fact of having you both here, it's essential for us also to understand how we cannot work in silos in tackling hate speech, disinformation, and polarization. And local and regional governments need to work with the local stakeholders, and this is where the meaning of LRGs as mobilizers of stakeholders comes in, right? But not only with NGOs, also with the people. So nothing for them without them. I think for me, this is a sentence that stands out, that we need to work with the communities. We need to work with those more than like the usual suspects, to make sure that their needs are tackled there. And I think this brings me to the second point I wanted to highlight, because it's very relevant, and it's implementing global citizenship education through an intersectional feminist perspective, because this is where participatory approaches come in. And I think the examples shared by Josu really showcase these approaches. Thank you so much again. Without further ado, we will go to our last presentation, which will be made by Yassin from the city of Leuven. He will be presenting the Got Your Back campaign. So please, Yassin, you can already share your screen and start presenting. Thank you so much.
So thank you for inviting me today. I am Yassin from the city of Leuven. I will present to you today the Got Your Back campaign. Maybe just to give you a very small context, the city of Leuven is a Belgian city in the Dutch-speaking part, so in Flanders. We are very near to Brussels, about 25 to 30 kilometers. We are a city of around 100,000 inhabitants. We have a big university in our city, so we have 50,000 students on top of that 100,000 inhabitants. So we are really a university-dominated city, so to say. And we have a project within the city, which is called Leuven Without Racism. It's the anti-racism project. So the Got Your Back campaign is part of this, or originates in this project. Of course, we also have many other policies, like on international solidarity, on gender equality, and so forth. But today, time is really short, so I'm going to focus on this specific part. So the most important question that was asked of me in the preparation of this webinar was how in Leuven we try to engage and activate the citizens within our campaign. So the Got Your Back campaign is a campaign we started in 2022. So Leuven Without Racism exists from 2018. We did several campaigns. I will show them in very quickly or very briefly later. But in around 2020, we had the Black Lives Matter movement, of course. And we started thinking more on not only tackling structural discrimination and structural racism, but also how to work on incidents of racism and discrimination. So we had dialogue tables and groups with young people, racialized people, people of color in Leuven. And this was one of the priorities that they formulated. So we as a city administration took it by heart, and we developed the Got Your Back campaign, which is actually a bystanders campaign. So how can we activate the bystanders in creating or fostering this inclusive and this this climate of solidarity in the city? So we worked with a communication bureau, quite a famous one in Belgium, which is very creative, which is of course very interesting if you want to really galvanize your citizens. So the Got Your Back campaign had two main parts. The first part you can see, maybe the picture is too small, but it's like a shoe tag, so a tag you put on your laces in your shoe, because when people are confronted with or are witness to situations of inappropriate behavior, of racism, of discrimination, they often want to look away and they often look at their shoes. And then with this shoe tag, if people wear the shoe tag, then they see the shoe tag, and we hope that they take responsibility to be an active bystander and to foster this inclusive climate in the city. So we did this. We shared this with many schools, other target groups. We also had campaign days where we went into the city to really distribute these shoe tags. So at the end, we shared almost 10,000 shoe tags in Leuven, which was a big success. Also, many schools came to us and asked for them, but also other organizations asked for them. So we had a double goal here. The first goal was how do we help people to take responsibility, and how can we really touch their feeling of responsibility to create this inclusive climate. Then, of course, the second part of the campaign was more on, okay, I want to be an active bystander, but it's not easy. It's against many evolutionary psychological barriers to put yourself at risk, to speak out. It's not easy. Our psychology does not work that way. So we really wanted to also give them tools and show them how they could do it. In the first instance, when we started the campaign, we did it with videos, and I will show you just two of the 4 or 5 videos that we made in 2022. as you can see, it was not only a campaign on discrimination on racial grounds, but also on the basis of gender and also on LGBTQI. So we used different kinds of situations of discrimination, and we showed to people how they can react. Of course, there are many more ways to react. But on the card where this shoe tag was on the backside, but you cannot see it on the picture. On the backside, we also had, like, I think in English it's the 5 Ds, in Dutch is the 5 A's. So it's like the different ways in which you can be an active bystander in a safe and a proper way. So the year afterward, we organized we did a second part of the campaign where we developed a game, the Got Your Back game, which can be played. Mostly it was played by youngsters in schools and in other organizations, but also by adults in a family setting or in other settings. It had 2 parts. So in the first part, we wanted to raise awareness on the position of disadvantaged groups in society, and that we did that by showing how subtle discrimination works. I will not explain the whole game, but it was just like to make very visual how discrimination works. And then the second part, we talked about situations or incidents of racism and discrimination, which were all based on true events in Leuven, on testimonies we had from people in Leuven, where they could reflect on their role as a bystander. What would I do? What would you do? That way, it was like a very low threshold way to get groups, schools, other groups, to get them familiar with the theme. And also, this is also part of our strategy in general in Leuven. We always look upon education, of course, schools and other education institutions to take up their role on creating this solidarity and this inclusive society. But what we hear from them very often is, give us ready-made tools that we can use to start a conversation in the classroom. Don't give us all these expertise and all this background information and all these conferences and all these trainings. That's not really what we need. We already have a basic notion of what the problem is. Of course, it's important to give some background, but they really want ready-made tools to work with their groups. And we have seen that it works really well. So we have done it a couple of times now in the last couple of years, but I will show you later. So what we also did during this same period is started bystanders trainings. So we did that at the end of 2022, so in between the Got Your Back campaign and the launch of the Got Your Back game. There are 3 types of bystanders training that we offer in Leuven. One is one organized by the city, where individual citizens can take part and can participate. Also, when a school, an organization, a company, someone else, they want to organize this bystanders training within their organization. We also have a person at the city that does an intake with them, that looks at the specific question and then matches them with an external partner or someone from the city that can organize this bystander training. And the third one is a training that we organize for staff of the city of Leuven, so our own workforce, and that I give the training for the own workforce. Up to now, so I think it's about 3.5 years ago that we started with the bystander training at the end of 2022. We already trained around 2,000 people. So it's not a huge number, but it's I think it's a start to do this. But of course, one of the main risks, I think, if you do these kinds of campaigns, is that you create the impression that you shift the responsibility for tackling discriminations toward the citizens, while as a local government, you cannot only appeal to the citizens to do their part, but it's very important that you also show what you do, and that the policy of facilitating bystanders training or doing bystanders campaigns is integrated, encapsulated, and grounded in a strong anti-discrimination policy. We see that that is the best way to appeal to your citizens, to take them with you in this narrative of change, and to motivate them also to make a difference by showing what the city does as well. So it's, as I said, it's important. The fundamentals are very important, so it should be encapsulated and grounded in a broader plan. We have the Leuven Without Racism action plan. We have many different initiatives on how we tackle structural discrimination, but time is too short to focus on that part of the plan. So I want to just focus on the incidental discrimination. There we have four, let's say, phases that we organized ourselves around. The first one is prevention. So we organize awareness raising campaigns. I will show them later, just in a second. The second one is intervention, so everything that has to do with bystanders training, but I already talked about that. The third one is registration, and the fourth one is curation, is aftercare for people that were victim of incidents of discrimination. And then if we look at the communication and like the branding and the awareness raising that we do, these are just a couple of examples of what we did the last couple of years. So we did it in 2021 during COVID. We did it again last year. How do you say, a poster campaign. So because we think that it's very important that you work on the sense of belonging, and I think there are thousands of houses and windows in Leuven where the poster for Leuven Without Racism is shown. And certainly in these times, we heard it before from our colleagues from the other cities, where there's a lot of hate speech on the internet, where the algorithms really push a narrative that is divisive. It's very important that we also show that other side, that silent group that also can show that they support a Leuven Without Racism, and that people of different backgrounds belong in our city and are fully part of this city as much as anyone else. So that's really important. Another thing that we do is it's one of the ready-made tools we made for professionals in education is a skin color collection. So it's like these kinds of in Belgium we have these kind of the skin color pencil is like a certain color. It's like some kind of pink, and if you ask any kid in Belgium to take the skin color pencil, they always take the same, even if the kid has a dark skin color or another skin color, they always take the same. So we made these skin color collections in all different kinds of skin colors with different pencils for children between 5 and 8 years old, and for their teachers to start the conversation on diversity, on subtle forms of racism and discrimination in the classroom. So we still make them. We have shipped them to many cities in Belgium and Europe by now, because there's lots of interest for this project, because it's very visual, it's very telling, it's very clear, and it's very important. It's also very low threshold to use. And another campaign we did was the memory campaign. So it's a memory game. You all know what memory is. You have two pictures and you need to memorize where the other picture is, so you win. And what we did here is we chose a lot of people from Leuven, from all different backgrounds, all different ages, all different disabilities, and so forth. And what we did is there are two different pictures. One picture of the person themselves, and then one picture with a certain characteristic, an object, something else that says something about them. And we did this just to work on stereotyping and to make people aware of the stereotypes that they have when they see just a picture, and then they see that every person has a certain story, something that maybe they don't expect, and so on. So we also made this. This is the campaign from last year, so from 2025. And then maybe just to end, because I'm already 1 minute over time, is the registration. So we have a certain place in the city administration where all kinds of social questions, they can come. It's like the entry point for all kinds of questions on social support, on other kinds of support, on people that are the victim of any kind of situation. In Belgium, we have a very unknown, a confusing and a fragmented reporting landscape because we have many different governments, a very difficult structure. So we do not have any equality offices or anti-discrimination offices on the local level, only in the capital in Brussels. So we had started a pilot project, an experimental project, to integrate the theme of discrimination within Leuven Helps. Which focuses not only on the legal side of discrimination, but also on the psychological and the social well-being of the victim, to give them all the information, to give them back agency, to give them back control over the situation, and to refer them to the competent authority or some kind of other solution that they seek. They also give the aftercare. So if there's some kind of need on psychological support is also provided. And we also give material support. I find this a very important part of our project. If someone comes to Leuven Helps and they say, I've been discriminated in the housing market, I was looking for a house and I've been discriminated, something that we all hear, I think, sadly, in Europe or anywhere else for that matter. So that person does not only want information on where can I make a complaint, but also looks for a house. So this material support is also integrated within this Leuven Helps project. So it's not only on discrimination, it's on all kinds of social challenges and difficulties. And so now it is our local reporting point on discrimination, not only for victims, but also for bystanders, because it's important that we get signals as well so that we can monitor the prevalence of discrimination on the different domains. And then just to finish, they work on the first line, so we are the reporting point, but also on the second line. So any professional, any social worker in Leuven that wants to get that, like within their work, they are confronted with experiences of discrimination by their from their clients or from other people, they can also contact Leuven Helps so that they can be supported in offering this or be the reporting point, so to say, because it's always a high threshold for clients in vulnerable situations to come to an office that they do not know to share their story. So then that way we also support social workers and other first line workers in being implicit or informal reporting points. Okay, that was my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. And I think if there are any questions, there will be a possibility to ask them soon.
Thank you very much, Yassin. Again, many important points to highlight from the presentation. I think when you were talking about the fundamentals and the different policy levels that back all the practical examples is where we saw how like global citizenship education needs to be mainstreamed across all policy areas, because democracy is shaped across all different local policy areas, starting with diversity and inclusion policies. And I think also the practical examples that you share, the campaign for bystanders, speaks very well to the experiences of the people. You showed some examples of maybe like racist and sexist practices that are normalized. So if we use these kind of examples that really speak to the everyday life experiences of the people, we will make sure that global citizenship education is something tangible and that it really tackles the real issues. So thank you very much for all these experiences. Colleagues, we will close the meeting here because we are already 10 minutes over time. If participants have some further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you so much. I think key points we've talked about today is mainstreaming GCE across all local policy areas to really foster and leverage the position that LRGs, that local and regional governments have at the territory to continue fighting this democratic backsliding through global citizenship education, participatory approaches, feminist perspective, feminist intersectional perspectives, and transformative communication. Thank you very much. You have a link to give us feedback in the chat, so please don't hesitate to fill in this feedback and also to join the rest of the webinars that the Angel Network is organizing. Thank you so much, and a very, very strong thank you to the speakers today that have shared all their practices. Thank you, and have a lovely afternoon, everyone.